Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Kings of the North LAN qualifier. I am Poke Bunny here with my good friend Rapid. How you doing, buddy?
Doing fantastic. This is going to be the best StarCraft I have ever cast at 1:30 a.m. in the morning. So I am, when I say I am pretty excited, I am pretty excited. But if I was like, no, I'm just kidding. It's going to be fun. There are not that many offline or independent tournament offline StarCraft tournaments. So I'm excited to be a part of one of them. And these are what do you want to qualify the players who are playing in this tournament as? Are these the finest examples of Canadian StarCraft esports the world has ever seen?
There are definitely some solid players in here. I know there are a couple notably missing, that are some of the best players in Canada. I imagine they'll be among the invites since this is a Canadian-run tournament.
Yeah.
But we do have some pretty good players in here. BioIce, who will be playing in our first game, is, a mainstay among High Grandmaster and WCS Challenger and stuff like that. So definitely, a couple of the better players in North America here today. And we'll be getting started with our first game, which is BioIce versus SpaceJam, a Masters player, a Terran. So this will be a ZVT. Got our first map loading up on Ascension to Ire.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, yeah, we don't have like the DreamHack production where it plays like the sexy rock music all the time, but yeah, this is going to be really exciting. I've heard of BioIce, and before today's games, the only reference between SpaceJam and StarCraft that I understood was the Quad City DJs versus Blizzard Entertainment Slamcraft remix. Fortunately, he is actually a player, and we'll get a chance to watch him play versus this guy in the upper left-hand corner of Ascension to Ire. It's BioIce. Dun, 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 dun. That's what DreamHack would do. And then on the other side, I also just have to figure out which observer power. Okay, there it is. It's number 2. There we go. His opponent on the lower right-hand side is SpaceJam, the teal Terran. And so we have a TVZ, a classic matchup to start things off.
Yep, TVZ on Ascension to Ire. Certainly should not go without noting here that BioIce, as I mentioned, as a mainstay at the top of the North American scene, is probably the heavy favorite here. SpaceJam gonna have to make some magic happen to take down such an excellent player. BioIce, of course, also looks like, I would imagine this is his map pick. Pretty good Zerg map to start off on. So if I was BioIce, I'd be feeling pretty confident here. SpaceJam starting off with a Barrack Gas, going to be a Reaper Expand, it looks like. Pretty standard stuff. And BioIce with a Hatch Gas Pool.
Should be noted that BioIce is not using his War Chest skins, but on the other side, it looks like our friend SpaceJam is. So he has been out there supporting WCS esports, just like everybody else out there should be as well. But yeah, I mean, there's literally nothing more exciting to talk about here. I was casting PvPs yesterday with Tasteless, and it's just the same exact build or opener every single time. Right. And then you get to the big scary divergence, which is when one player makes 2 Adepts and the other player makes 2 Stalker, and it's just mind-blowing. So games like this are kind of like that in that you can pretty much just kind of predict how everything is going, except that it isn't, it's a Reaper Expand, but that's about all that Reaper's probably going to do.
Right, yeah, this Reaper just doing a little bit of early scouting, moving into the main, gonna see the link speed and no more gas mining. Queen's coming out, so the Reaper should not be able to move as freely anymore. SpaceJam actually going for the really early 3rd command center, staying only on the single gas in his main, so probably won't see a quick starport follow-up or anything of the sort with just 1 gas. Natural command center and factory gonna finish up. We'll probably see a couple Hellions coming out, and this is like the greediest Terran opener that is still somewhat reasonable. Like, you'll see very high level players still do this opener, so it's not like it's not like, you know, he's making something up trying to get away with something that he shouldn't be able to, but it definitely does require a bit of precision to get away with something like this.
Yeah, and also I see this a lot versus Protoss. Maybe not with the Hellion opener, but going triple CC. Anytime you you think to yourself, well, I, as a race not Zerg, will just kind of hang back and get a bunch of command centers and maybe not put on that much pressure, but just try to get my macro on. Well, you know, then you run up against a Zerg player who is, you know, less harassed than pretty much every other opener and just kind of expands and blooms out of control. So maybe if you are the caliber of player that our friend SpaceJam here is, he's okay with that and just needs to be allowed to play his own game. But certainly with as much economy as jam-packed into our opener here, or his opener here, it's not going to be putting on as much pressure as anything else.
Right.
And now Zerglings are running into his main.
Yeah, 4 Zerglings do just sneak by into the main. Shouldn't get too much done here. 1 SCV will go down, but 2 did also go down at the natural, so that will be 3 SCVs.
Yeah.
And he had to bring all the Hellions all the way back. BioIce moving across the map with another group of links, setting up for another counter. I know this is something, having played him a lot, this is something BioIce really, really likes to do a lot. He tends to commit a lot of his army to counterattacks pretty often and rely on his opponent's, you know, kind of inattentiveness to his main army. You know, the fact that you kind of have to pull back and look at your natural or whatever to be able to delay the main army enough to build up a large enough force. But he is getting 10 SCVs. I'm not sure if that's 10 total or 10 more. It is 10 more.
10 more, yeah.
So, yeah, that's a pretty significant start for him.
Wow. This is just already only within 5 minutes of the game. There's this excellent movie back in the 70s that was made. It's based on a verse in the Bible that says, if footmen tire you, what will horses do? It's like, if you can't keep up at this level, how are you going to keep up later on? And these are just a few early links. The first 4 got 3 SCV kills, and then the follow-up afterwards just so incredibly effective. BioIce already starting to just get himself that little bit more ahead. Now he's 22 workers up on SpaceJam.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, the worker count really tells the story here. BioIce throwing down all his gases as he gets his mineral lines saturated. SpaceJam is moving out to land that 3rd command center, so, you know, might improve his economy a little bit, even if he doesn't quite have the SCVs to support it at this point. Getting his upgrades going as well, so, you know, he's pretty much behind in all aspects with the damage that those Ling run-bys did. You know, upgrades a little behind, base is a little bit behind. So he'll definitely struggle to do any significant damage on the map as this game progresses.
It's gonna be rough, but I mean, Terran has always been the kind of race that I feel like holds on just maybe a little bit more or better than we see other races do. 3 bases up, and if SpaceJam can hold on to this, then maybe he'll have the ability to do what I call like innovation drops, where you're just not really in a great spot, but you just drop your opponent out of control, and sometimes magic happens.
Right. Yeah, he is moving over to the left side with a small force of Marines and Hellions over towards this 4th base. BioIce, in the meantime, has a decent chunk of Lings and is just starting some Banelings up. So he should be able to defend this pretty comfortably, assuming those Banelings do make it over to this 4th in time. They are slow Banelings, so that is not quite a given. 2 medevacs join the force for SpaceJam, but that is a lot of Zerglings, and it looks like he's just going to have to pick up whatever he can and get out of there.
Ooh, yeah, he was thunderstepping his Hellions, but never gave them enough time to shoot. So the Hellions have a different rhythm for the stutter step than Marines do. He was doing them in the Marine rhythm, which never let them get a single shot off, and that just means that he was forced to pick up, pull back, and now he's going to have to drop his units in the face of a very angry Zergling swarm.
Yeah, only a few Banelings here, but he should have enough to be able to force these Marines out of this corner. SpaceJam
or lose everything.
Yeah. He does pick up some of the Marines, but yeah, certainly in a lot of trouble here. The wall is going to remain up, but he's going to lose almost all of his SCVs at the third base and be forced to lift that off any moment now.
Yeah, he's going to lift and repair that depot up to the front. He sent SCVs over there. There we go. They will repair, but yeah, the third base is going to be completely devastated, forced to lift off, and SpaceJam's in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, he does have, you know, his 2-2 upgrades going. He's got his 3 command centers still, of course, but BioIce now saturating his 4th base, as well as getting some Hydralisks out, going for this sort of newer Hydralisk Ling Bane style. One thing to note about BioIce, interestingly, I'm not sure if, you know, this is just a result of his very safe early game, but he actually went for 3 evolution chambers in his main. So he is upgrading both melee and ranged attack. So he's got 1-1 on both his Lings and his Hydras. And I don't think that's something we usually see. Usually we see players going for either one or the other, or just getting, you know, +1 on each melee and range while getting +2 on the armor. But yeah, he is going for that triple evolution chamber for those heavily upgraded units all around.
Yeah, and if you could get air upgrades off evolution chambers, he had 5 evolution chambers right now. I don't know. He's doing a remarkable job playing the long game. He's got upgrades and 5th base now even on the way with Scarlet-esque creep spread.
Yep. Still, unfortunately for him, sitting on slow Banelings with no Baneling speed even on the way. So he may have a little trouble attacking with this large army of his, but it's doing an okay job at fending off these drops. Gonna have to move towards this 5th base rather quickly to hold on to that. But it looks like he will just make it in time.
Just
close, but yeah,
barely.
he does it up. And the medevac falls as well.
Yeah, SpaceJam lost those 2 medevacs in the north and then 1 in the south, and he just really does not have all that much stuff right now. Less than 50 supply versus almost 150. This is not a great spot to be in. Now, granted, I mean, Ascension to Ire is kind of a big map just because you kind of crawl up the side with your expansions. But now that this 5th base is taken by BioIce, he just kind of uses that as a staging platform. He's about to shove 150 supply of Zerg badness right into SpaceJam's face.
Yep. Liberators siege up as well as the tanks, but the slow Banelings do manage to waddle their way in and take out SpaceJam's army. The 3rd CC will fall, and SpaceJam calls GG.
GG indeed. That is going to do it for our first game of the series, our first game of the tournament. Not the first game that we have ever cast together, Poke Bunny. Did a little bit of the DreamHack, or was that IEM?
No, it was WCS.
WCS.
Valencia?
Yeah, WCS Valencia.
The first
I have to
day,
learn the correct thing to call it. But now that I've been successfully appraised of the names I'm supposed to call everything, we should be able to get into our next game pretty quickly. Still figuring out exactly kind of the rhythm of this, but for everybody else that tuned in on, well, I guess what is it? It's like noon there, right?
Yeah, it's 1 p.m. here. But it looks like we are going to go to a short little break before this next game. I think it'll be another game of BioIce and SpaceJam, if I am not mistaken. But we will be back in just a moment. We are back with game number 2 of BioIce versus SpaceJam. Sorry for the delay, ladies and gentlemen, but we are getting into game number 2 on Odyssey any moment now.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed. There we go. Yeah, indeed. Here we are, and actually kind of excited to see what SpaceJam has in store. Obviously he's a player I've watched a little bit less of, so I want to see a little bit more of him in a StarCraft kind of way. I got a chance to see a pretty solid opener. He's not doing anything wacky or weird or unqualified. There we go. Sorry, I think I just have to move my microphone. Ugh. But he did seem to take a little bit of a hit when it came to like mid-game APM, just a little bit low. His means of defense really kind of paled in comparison to BioIce, which really never looked challenged a whole lot. So let's go ahead and get into our second game of this series. It's BioIce, our pink Zerg, in the upper left-hand corner, versus his opponent in the tealish, bluish color. As our Terran player, in the bottom right, it's SpaceJam.
Yep.
SpaceJam. There we go.
Yeah, we do have another fairly large map lending itself to, macro openings as the last one did. Of course, we saw that quick 3cc from SpaceJam. So if you wanted to do it again, this wouldn't be a bad map for it. But I'm hoping we do see something a little bit different. He is starting off with that Rax Gasp once again. And BioIce going, of course, for the hatch first, so nothing unusual yet. Looks like SpaceJam will send out an SCV for a pretty early scout, just to make sure that he doesn't get caught off guard by any pool first shenanigans.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far, pretty similar to what we saw last game.
See, the only way that I know BioIce is because he is super best IRL friends with the other Canadian Zerg that I know. That is No Regret. And so every time he goes hatch first, I just have to think to myself, I'm like, well, clearly there must have been some arguments that these two players have had in the past because they're, opting for somewhat different strategies. So,
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there definitely is a little bit of similarity between them, actually. Like, they both really like that link bane control aspect of the game, tend to stay on low tech and, do a lot of counterattacks and, general foolishness with Ling Bane early on. BioIce, perhaps less of the all-in variant and more of the, harass type stuff, as we saw last game, setting up that really early Ling counterattack that he used when his opponent's Hellions moved out. So you'll see him do stuff like that quite often, and that is definitely something that No Regret does when he plays macro games, which of course is not always the case. BioIce, of course, as I said, tending towards that a little bit more. And we are going to see so far the same openers. We've got the factory going down for SpaceJam. Again, no second gas as of yet, so it's possible that we'll see the third CC again. He is moving his Reaper into the main where the Lings are not, and may actually catch a drone off guard, but a nice Spore Morph does manage to save it.
I've never heard it called a spore morph before, but I was looking for like a very sort of onomatopoeic way to say it. But when the sound is like, I forget what the sound is, like, I don't know what it is, but there's not a whole lot of ways to say that. Spore morph sounds pretty good. A nice save there, and now we have not 4 like last time. This time it's only 3 Lings coming out across the map, and the Reaper's been all the way pulled back. So I think getting any early Ling kills like we saw in game 1 is probably not going to happen.
Right. Yeah, SpaceJam is once again going for that third command center, getting a couple Hellions out. He should hopefully be a little bit more prepared for the counterattacks this time around, maybe leaving a couple Hellions at home. We see sometimes players will send their first 2 Hellions on the map, and then, the next 2 will maybe stay to defend against any counterattacks. His Hellions will actually get out at a perfect time to deal with the first 4 Lings and push those away. But yeah, BioIce getting up his third base, just continuing to drone up as he did in game 1, and so far it's all looking pretty similar.
Okay, well, I mean, hopefully for SpaceJam it does not look quite as similar, as he is going to head out with those first 2 Hellions, see if they can get any damage done. I think the big thing that would be a victory is catching those Zerglings out on the map and being able to take them out so this counterattack doesn't work, but we haven't really seen BioIce poke in. He is just working on getting that third base up and running. That's where these Hellions are going to hit, but there's not really any drones there to kill.
Right. BioIce does get a second group of Lings out as his first four move into the natural, but SpaceJam did leave 2 Hellions at home this time around, so he will be able to push those away after losing just 1 SCV. And yeah, his first Hellions are still out on the map, managing to find a few Lings themselves. Does need to be a little bit careful for these reinforcing Lings, but he should be just fine.
Yeah, and last game we saw BioIce go for triple evolution chambers just to get his upgrade on. Well, this time it's SpaceJam that's gone for double engineering bays, so he will be looking for quite a few upgrades himself in the bio direction.
Right, yeah, he is getting that 3 racks production up, as well as starting his starport and the reactor on his factory to get the medevacs going as well. But I will say, BioIce having a pretty smooth early game himself, up to 54 drones now, should be starting to take his gases very shortly with all of these extra drones he's got. SpaceJam, though, I mean, he definitely is looking a bit better this time around. He's kept his SCV count up. The economic advantage is not really too much in favor of BioIce once you take those mules into account. But he is taking that gold as his 4th base, which will be something that SpaceJam may have to do something about if he wants to keep himself even economically.
BioIce still just poking around, trying to see what he can see, and indeed he will see a depot wall coming up. Thankfully, they will finish before the Zergling are able to get any damage done, but it's a nice poke. It's going to see exactly the timing of when the space comes down. So BioIce will pretty much know everything he's going up against. It's like, okay, there's lots of Marines. This isn't going to be like a wacky mech transition. Should know everything that's coming his way.
Right. SpaceJam still just sitting on 3 barracks production. Probably going to want to get a couple more up shortly, as well as an army to continue upgrading. But just for now, getting those medevacs out. Probably going to go for a push once those do hit the field. Both players upgrading pretty quickly, as mentioned. And BioIce starting that Baneling nest, so it looks pretty much just like the first game strategically, I guess, just fortunately for SpaceJam, with a little bit more of a smooth early game.
It is indeed quite smooth. If you look at his economic growth graph, it's just going to go way up there, uninhibited for the most part. I mean, finally, we're starting to see a big, solid push coalesce here for SpaceJam, but you can always tell how much the Terran wants to commit to their push by how much of it can fit in the medevacs. And if they have more on the ground that could fit in the medevacs, they want to stay there. If they have less on the ground that can fit in the medevacs, they're looking to pick up and get back out. But with these 2 Hellbats in the front, this is actually going to be a little bit solid.
Right, BioIce moving in with his Ling Bane. 1 medevac full of Marines does fall along with the Hellbats, so a pretty solid cleanup from BioIce. Does get some drones out on that 4th base, going up to 79 workers. So he's looking pretty solid here as he starts his +2 armor and his Baneling speed. Going once again for that 3rd evolution chamber and getting the +1 for his Hydras. Interesting choice here. I wonder if this is something he does all the time, or just perhaps since the opener was so passive, he feels like he's got the money to get this extra upgrade out.
I mean, this is just hyper macro play. A lot of times I feel like you probably shouldn't be allowed to do that, just because it's a lot of resources for the upgrades and a lot of resources for the extra evolution chamber. And if you're getting that upgrade, then and that's the only thing you do with that evolution chamber, then it loses value at that point. And if you're spending more and more, then a continual drain on your economy. All the while, you should be taking a lot of damage, all this harass like we see now in the main base from SpaceJam.
Right, yeah. Drop for SpaceJam, just take out a couple drones and stop mining for a little while. Meanwhile, BioIce actually moved over with a counter and took out the 3rd CC with the Banelings. I'm not sure if all of that damage was with Banelings or just part of it. I imagine he didn't spend the entire health of that CC in Banelings, but Banelings do finish it off, so SpaceJam gonna have to rebuild that 3rd base as he tries to cancel the 5th base of BioIce in the bottom left-hand corner. So that should tell you, definitely a base or 2 down here. is SpaceJam, but he's doing a good job with these drops, finding some holes, manages to take out a queen at the natural, and going to go for a few drones and an overlord next. But at the same time, BioIce does have a pretty large standing army, should be able to fend off any frontal attacks. But, I mean, you know, taking a look at the supply, SpaceJam holding his own in terms of army supply, got a pretty large army built up at his outside of his natural. Only 1 or 2 tanks here at this point. Looks like a third one just did come out. So he may struggle to push into this large number of Hydras, but, you know, definitely getting his macro going pretty well.
Yeah, right as you say that, he transfers not 1, not 2, but 22 SCVs over here to his third base, trying to get that up and running. It's going to complete, and so now this is try number 2, but keep in mind there's also a fourth base at the gold on the way right now. So this is really crazy macro mode, and I feel like maybe a little optimism from SpaceJam to see if he can hold so much out on the map.
Yeah, I mean, if he does manage to get that planetary up at the fourth base, it will do pretty well against the counterattacks. But BioIce is once again moving across the map with a large lane counterattack, and he is going to get through that natural wall. Not quite into the main. Good reaction from SpaceJam to at least keep the lings contained to the natural. But yeah, SpaceJam moving over with his main army to the bottom left. Going to have to siege up these tanks before the Zerg army gets too close, and the tanks siege just a little too late as the Banelings roll in.
And every single tank will fall, all the bio on the ground going down. The Desperation Mules dropped, but unfortunately not able to save him. That's going to give BioIce the 2-0 over SpaceJam.
Yeah, both games going pretty smoothly for BioIce. The second perhaps taking a little bit longer with those counterattacks not doing quite as much damage. But he did look good macro-wise. So BioIce will take a clean 2-0 victory and move on to the round of 8 in the winner's bracket, where he will face Powerfoe. Powerfoe took out Macintac 2-0. Not sure if we'll have a look at the rest of the bracket here, but we do have a couple players already moving on to that second round in the winner's bracket.
Indeed, yeah. Just gonna have to refresh this. Checking out our bracket now. You guys can see it there on stream. We've got BioIce now up against Powerfoe next. On the other side, Buster awaiting the winner of Steadfast and Endersword, and Sammy versus the Donald. Winner of that faces off against the Riddler. More importantly, first round, Lightning 2-0'd up a tree. A very popular figure in the StarCraft community, and it's going to advance to face the winner of NYK versus let me try this out. New Burgundy.
I can't help you with that one.
I don't know. I feel like the first thing you need to learn as a StarCraft player in the tutorial, like you learn how to move your units, you learn how to, attack move and things like that. You learn how to like build stuff, and then you learn how to do basic player branding, and that is including making a name that can be pronounced by players or casters that have to say it.
Yeah, so we do have most of those first round matches finishing up. I'm not quite sure what our next match will be. I can tell you we will not be.
Looks like it's going to be Riddler versus Sam. Well, I'm just going to call him Sam because his full name is Samuel?
Yeah.
Samuel. Okay.
Yeah, Samuel. Yeah. I actually played this guy on ladder a couple times yesterday, so I am mildly familiar. I don't know who he is other than that, but he is a solid mid Grandmaster Zerg on the North American ladder. The Riddler, some of you may have heard a little bit about him, perhaps a little bit infamous for some account sharing shenanigans, some Avillo impersonating shenanigans. He has a stream. I think he's the one who has an account on Twitch called Mech God Avillo. That's basically just making fun of Avillo. So we will be seeing him play versus Sammy in the second round of the winner's bracket. That actually should be a pretty solid match. I feel like both of these players are somewhat on the same level. The Riddler is a mech player predominantly, so we should see some mech TVZ here. Sammy is a Zerg player. But yeah, I imagine this will probably be a bit of a closer match than the first one, at least.
Yeah, and it should be noted what these players are actually playing for. If you make it to the final round of this tournament, then that seeds you into the Swiss. Well, this is like a play-in, so this will play you into the Swiss round of the final players for the Kings of the North season 4 LAN. And at that point, you, based on your performance in the Swiss round, that determines your seed into the actual bracket, whether or not you're in the upper side of the bracket or the lower side of the bracket, which definitely means you have to play a lot less games if you are in the upper series, or if you're in the upper series. So you definitely want to skip as far forward in the tournament as possible. And this is, of course, just the barely start to the tournament. So everything has to start somewhere.
Right. Looks like we will be taking a minute or two to get this game started, as one of our players